Welcome to the Survey of Useful Models and Theories module. This module explores the fundamental theories and models that underpin effective teaching and learning. By examining key concepts such as learning theory, learning styles, neurodiversity, media theory, and instructional design frameworks, you will gain valuable insights into how to create engaging and effective educational experiences. Whether you are new to instructional design or looking to deepen your understanding, this module will provide a solid foundation for your practice. By completing this module, you will develop or refine an understanding of how learning theory informs course design. Recognize the role that media theories can help a course designer make choices about what tools to use, and, in some cases, how to use tools more effectively. Become aware of several frameworks and models used by instructional designers to guide the design and development of a course. Each module includes your choice of watching a video version or a text-only page of the materials and 2 types of assessments. A concept that often gets equated or conflated with learning theory is learning style. Where a learning theory attempts to describe how humans learn, a learning style describes an ideal way of learning for different people. There are many different learning style frameworks, most attempting to account for different strengths related to sensory or processing capabilities or preferences. For example, VARC has been presented as part of the ISW training used previously here at Jackson College. Learning style models often provide or suggest different approaches for each learning style in the model that, if used, would optimize the learning potential for students within each learning style. However, current research does not support the idea that optimizing learning approaches for students results in greater learning performance. This isn't to say that learning styles are useless. Most provide a framework that can be used by a designer to think about student learning preferences and needs in ways that can help break out of familiar patterns that mostly replicate the designer's prior experience, which may not have been a good design. Recently, the idea of neurodiverse learning design has become popularized. This idea stems from work done around the autism spectrum. In contrast to the term neurodivergence, neurodiversity is an attempt to be more inclusive, moving away from the idea of neurodivergence as a deficit while at the same time acknowledging that neurodiversity is more than autism. In terms of course design, the approaches recommended often replicate some from various learning style models, and many are similar to those recommended by Universal Design for Learning. Universal Design for Learning, UDL, is a course design and teaching approach that helps meet the needs of all learners by removing unnecessary barriers. The UDL framework features a more student-centered and adaptable approach to learning with 3 overarching components: multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. For more about this framework, look for the UDL component in this series of courses. Learning theory attempts to help us understand how humans learn. A course designer often has their own beliefs about what learning theory best explains how they think their students learn and will use ideas from that learning theory to inform the design of their class. In other cases, a designer may not follow a particular learning theory but instead will incorporate practices stemming from more than one learning theory that has been proven over time to be appropriate for the content, typical student population, and delivery mode of the course they are designing. This approach might be thought of as a best practices approach in that the designer is agnostic as to learning theory but instead draws from research and experiences that focus on more targeted success measures of learning rather than those approaches that attempt to describe how learning happens. The study of media began with the advent of mass communication. Then, in the 1960s, Marshall McLuhan popularized media studies with the publication of his most famous work, Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man. You may have heard the phrase "the medium is the message" from this book. With the rise of the internet, media theory has studied how new tools for communication were being used and how they were changing the way we communicate, fall in love, access news, and educate. Researchers in online learning used media theory to help explain how communication tools could support learning as well as how new tools could and should be used effectively. There are several media theories that instructional designers use. 1. Social presence will be presented here. Short, Williams, and Christie created the social presence theory in the 1970s in their work related to video telephones. This construct grew out of the work of Argyll and Dean related to immediacy and the work of Wiener and Mehrabian on intimacy in mediated communication. Both constructs include nonverbal communication, such as being part of the perception of others when communicating. Short, Williams, and Christie describe social presence as a characteristic of the medium that the communicators perceived. One of the key aspects of the perception is what the authors identified as saliency or realness, a sense of being together in a shared space, and reduced perceived distance between communicators. With the rapid growth of online learning, many researchers used, and in some cases misused, social presence as a proxy for the quality or character of interaction between participants in online classes. Researchers have found a variety of practices that relate to social presence that, in studies, lead to greater satisfaction, better engagement, and student success. These include use of names in communication. Personalizing email and other communication reduces the perceived distance between participants. Instead of a generic salutation, it is recommended that instructors model using the student's name in the salutation and/or in the first sentence of communications, such as emails. Speed of reply to student inquiries. A rapid reply to a student inquiry in communication such as email, text, or discussion forum is more likely to be read and perceived as a behavior that demonstrates caring. There are pictures of instructors and students in the course. Being able to relate an image to communication reduces perceived distance and increases saliency. Personal disclosure, such as storytelling and sharing reflections about learning or discipline, can help increase the depth of relationships, which helps students feel more like they are together with others in a shared space. Instructor videos that include the instructor's image. Video is a powerful tool for increasing social presence, especially when the video includes the communicator's image, such as an instructor-created instructional videos, responses to discussions, or feedback on assignments. Media theory informs design by providing research-supported information about the capabilities of different media types. This helps designers understand new media types and frameworks such as grouping tools via synchronous versus asynchronous, text-only, visual, audio-only, blended, and multimedia. In some cases, media theory helps guide choices for which tool to use within a course. Media theory has informed several online learning-specific learning theories with technology that some designers find informative. As is the case with many other disciplines, instructional designers have created several models and frameworks that are useful to guide the design, development, and quality verification of courses to help ensure student success. One of the first of these, developed in the late 1960s, is Gagne's 9 Events of Instruction. This framework for designing instruction has 9 elements as follows. Gain attention, inform learners of objectives, stimulate recall of prior learning, present the content, provide learning guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention and transfer. In the 1970s, the Instructional Systems Development (ISD) model, known by its acronym ADDIE, was developed at Florida State University. ADDIE stands for Analysis, Design, Development, Implementation, and Evaluation. The ADDIE model, as presented, suggests that each step will be done in order. Many subsequent instructional design models are based on ADDIE, often providing refinements or ways of conceptualizing overlapping the elements of ADDIE or using an iterative process that facilitates revisiting components of the design process based on information that is revealed by another stage. In the late 1990s, the concept of backward design was introduced by Wiggins and McTighe in a book entitled Understanding by Design. This design framework has 3 components. Identify the desired results, knowledge and skills a student will be able to do. Acceptable levels of evidence, how will results be assessed, and at what level. And design of learning activities, sequence, structure, and materials that will result in student success on the assessments. This model helps designers avoid the sometimes ineffective process of defaulting to the structure of a text or other materials to design a course. Instead, they focus on the outcomes that are needed or desired, then the assessments, allowing these to drive the design and selection of learning materials and activities. Motivation is an important part of student success. Accordingly, Some designers like to use motivation theory or frameworks that are derived from such theory to inform course design. One such framework is Keller's ARCS model, which has 3 elements. Attention recruiting learner attention through humor, inquiry, current events, and other methods as a way to help learners experience sufficient motivation to begin engagement. Relevance connecting the lesson's content with the learner's past, current, or predicted future experiences helps the learner view the learning as personally useful. Confidence designing the learning environment to support students' motivation to stay engaged through clarity, good directions, balanced difficulty, and encouragement. And satisfaction helping students experience a feeling of accomplishment through and after the learning process. Since 1980, technology has become a more important component of learning. Several models have been created to help teachers integrate technology more effectively. An example is TPACK, which stands for Technological, Pedagogical, and Content Knowledge. This model attempts to make the best use of the broad range of technologies available to them, along with their knowledge of effective teaching and knowledge of the content, to engage students towards successful learning results. Another such model is SAMR, which is an acronym for Substitution, Augmentation, Modification, and Redefinition. This is an attempt to describe a hierarchy of how technology and engagement methods using technology can enhance and/or transform learning to lessen the cognitive load. Learning theories attempt to describe and explain how humans learn. This is an area of research for psychologists, which is why you will notice that the individuals most associated with popular learning theories come from this discipline. There are multiple different schools of thought associated with learning theory and many different specific theories in each category of theories. Interestingly, they have fundamental differences, which might tell us that human learning is complicated or that humans are capable of learning in multiple ways. In either case, learning theory can still be helpful as a foundation for informing course design. As mentioned, there are many different learning theories, far too many to discuss in an overview such as this. For simplicity and brevity, this presentation will focus on 2 different schools or categories of learning theory, behaviorism and cognitivism, ignoring the several named learning theories that are refinements or extensions within each of these categories with the exception of one, constructivism, which belongs to the cognitive category as it has a few extensions that make it interesting. Behaviorism is grounded in the idea that learning is a change in behavior in response to stimuli. This theory was first proposed by John Watson in 1913 in a paper entitled Psychology as a Behaviorist Views It. Another researcher associated with behaviorism is Ivan Pavlov, who you will recall is known for classical conditioning, which he studied by associating food with other stimuli such as a bell ringing. He found that dogs reacted to the associated stimulus, the bell, by salivating, just as they do when they are given food. B.F. Skinner is another researcher associated with behaviorism. He is known for studying the role of reward and timing of rewards in relationship to so-called desired behaviors. One of the benefits of behaviorism as a theoretical construct is that it focuses on observable behaviors, which eliminates the untidy black box that is the mind as a variable. This school of learning theory was most popular from the 1920s to the 1950s, and many studies were published that demonstrated how well behaviorism worked to explain learning in this narrow way, especially with hungry undergraduate students. In all seriousness, behaviorism, or more specifically, the types of teaching and learning implications it contains, are still used in certain circumstances, and these can inform the design of instruction even today. Some of the course design implications of behaviorism are the development of directly measurable objectives that guide the development of learning activities, the selection of learning materials, and how student learning is assessed. Frequent assessment of student performance. The use of reinforcement or rewards for student performance on assessments. This element is, in part, an important principle for what is called gamification of instruction. Cognitivism came to the forefront in the 1930s, in part as a reaction to or against behaviorism's lack of focus on the internal processes of learning. Accordingly, cognitivism incorporates a focus on the internal processes of the mind as part of the learning process. Jean Piaget is associated with the early work in the 1930s that led to this theory. Among other things, Piaget's work in developing a four-stage development model was based in part on his observations that children of similar age approached tasks in similar ways, and made the same kinds of errors. The four stages he classified his observations into were sensory-motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. Lev Vygotsky is another who is associated with cognitivism through his work on the zone of proximal development and scaffolding. Another is Jerome Bruner and his work with discovery learning. Cognitivism contributes some of the ideas about teaching and learning that we sometimes lump together under the term active learning, such as sequencing learning activities so that students build their understanding of a topic from generalized to more complex as they progress through the course. Asking students to begin a learning cycle by recalling what they already know about a topic. Polling students after a learning activity about their experiences and impressions of their learning in the activity. Use diagrams, concept maps, and other techniques to help students connect new information to existing knowledge. Then, ask them to make predictions about what else they need to learn or do to learn. Considering the cognitive load that students encounter as they learn. Constructivism is a cognitivism learning theory that extends the understanding of how human learning happens. Where cognitivism deals with the learner as a processor of information, constructivism places more emphasis on the active participation of the learner as they construct meaning from interactions in the environment. Constructivism emerged in the 1950s out of the work of Piaget and Vygotsky and was further influenced by the work of others such as Jerome Bruner. In the late 1940s, his work on the value and need of children from different socioeconomic backgrounds and their perceptions on the size of coins and work, along with Leo Postman's on the effect of changing the color of suits of cards, inspired a deeper examination of individual interpretation to stimuli. Another notable individual who influenced constructivism was a protege of Piaget's was Seymour Papert. Papert, who, while at MIT in the 1960s through the 1980s, worked in epistemology, and especially the role of technology in learning. Known for his role in the development of the Logo programming language, a central idea of Papert's take on constructivism was that children especially learn best through creating and building things in their environment. Constructivism is associated with concepts and methods related to more ideas related to active learning as well as personalization of learning, including problem-based or hands-on learning guides students in learning by solving problems that are aligned with the real world. Inquiry-based learning in which students engage in a process that encourages them to investigate a topic by examining what they already know or think they know, identifying things that they need to know or know more about, as well as sources of information and expertise that they will use to find out more as they explore the topic. Students then classify and connect what they know, what they learn, and other viewpoints as they conclude, make associations with other topics, and ask deeper questions that might initiate another cycle of learning. Learning models such as the 5E, which help organize a constructivist approach to learning, are engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. There are various splinters or factions within the constructivist framework, each including components or refinements informed by the frameworks and technologies of the time in which they were defined. These include humanism, which focuses more on meeting learner needs as a necessary component of learning, and connectivism, which is influenced by technology and the Internet. Each offers ideas that might resonate in ways that could inform a course design. Instructional designers use learning theory to form a foundational understanding of how humans learn, which informs course design directly and indirectly through various frameworks that are best practices based on learning theory and application. Instructional design models guide the design, development, implementation, and validation of quality and effectiveness in a systematic way that helps designers work effectively and efficiently, as well as better communicate processes and procedures when working with others such as subject matter experts, SMEs, graphic designers, programmers, and technical developers. Motivation theory and models provide a lens through which designers can better perceive ways to create engaging learning experiences. In situations where appropriate, some designers use frameworks that specifically and intentionally integrate technology into learning designs to use better tools that are available. At Jackson College, we created the course design roadmap model mentioned in the Thinking Like a Designer module. You may be familiar with instructional designers who have developed their frameworks based on their studies.